Ladies and gentlemen, we're here, and welcome to the Andrew Canlon Show. Is it a podcast? Is it just a video series? Is it a show? We don't know. It's yet to even be titled. The Andrew Canlon Show is a working title, but this is something that I have been really excited about doing for a number of years now. It's something that I even attempted when I was very, very young and had absolutely nothing to talk about. I did a little podcast, I believe it was on Apple back in like 2010, 2011, called Andrew Unfiltered, when I was working for a marketing company and just interviewing my friends about the fact that we liked comic book movies and we all like to work out at martial arts gyms. There was not much going on back then. Andrew Canlon was a much different dude back in those days, and had convinced himself that music was something that he needed to retire from, that he needed to take full advantage of the fact that he defied the odds as a college dropout and ended up working at a major marketing firm at Chelsea, controlling the entire operations of a 100-person office, contributing to major brands and major events that you've probably watched on TV. I tell people all the time, you know what? If you've ever seen the movie Forrest Gump, that's pretty much my life. What does that mean? It means that, I'm never in the center of the shot. I'm never in the middle of the discussion. But if you zoom out, you're probably going to see me somewhere. Because let me tell you something. I've been around. I'm now 37 years old. Recently decided to pick up my life and move it here to Nashville, and it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made. Musically, as you know, in the many years that have followed since my first attempt at a podcast, now I have things to talk about. Now I have a YouTube channel that has grown substantially and something I'm very proud of, and it's been growing on the backbone of my music and my publishing and my songwriting and my recordings and my performances, which this is a dream as a songwriter, as someone who, spent his entire life learning music, from a technical point of view, from a classical point of view, and then much later in life, getting a very late start by going back to school for production at Juilliard, really recreating myself entirely. Also taking myself off of the corporate track and finally giving this music life a real chance. It's been a rocky road. There's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot of devastating moments, both personally and professionally. But at the end of the day, there are things that you need to do in life to kind of shake the tree loose at times. When things don't go your way, when progress is slow, when you've worn out your welcome in certain arenas, you do have to be industrious, and you do have to figure out ways to reinvent yourself. And the hardest thing to do in those moments, aside from all of it, is to continue to be patient and to continue to kind of ride that line between taking risks and really fine-tuning your product, whatever that is. And in my case, the content that I've been producing is something I never saw as valuable. It was always, the value strictly in the music. And unfortunately, we're living in a world today where you have to do a little bit of everything, even if those other things, aside from what you're passionate about, aren't necessarily things that you're good at. You still have to do, you have to be an entrepreneur in every way that you possibly can in order to have a chance in this world and in this economy in 2026 that we're living in. So, this channel, I'm really excited because, as you know, I've done a lot of studio sessions. There have been some live performances. There have been some music videos released on this channel, and it's something that I'd like to do more frequently. Now, in between those projects, which do take time, there is an opportunity to speak directly to the audience and to let you guys get to know me. And I think for a lot of people, this is a scary proposition to just speak plainly, for the camera to be on, for me to have no script, for it to be maybe perhaps a little rough around the edges, and still feel confident that I have something to say that might be of interest to you. I feel that way. Whether or not you guys agree, we'll see, right? The proof is always in the pudding. But, I wanted to take this time to, just reintroduce myself. Who is Andrew Canlon? I don't speak in the third person. I'm asking that question as if I were you. That's something that you're going to notice when I talk, is that I generally will speak from someone else's point of view. Now, I personally believe that that is my superpower as a writer. My ability to take myself out of my own skin and put my brain in someone else's life. That's something that I think I learned from my dad, who's also an incredible songwriter, who grew up on Billy Joel, who is one of, the most highly regarded songwriters of all time and one of the most highly regarded piano men of all time. So, that was what I grew up with. I grew up with this emphasis on lyricism, not just, self-indulgent, spilling your guts lyricism, but observational, timely, historically connected lyrics, and just not always making it about you. In other words, me, the musician, all eyes on me, right? And like we just want to get what we're feeling out there and just spill our guts and talk about our breakups and our relationships and our sex lives and all this personal stuff and our pain and our anxiety. And that's great. And I think you should, music should be a platform for you to be able to express those more heavy elements of being alive, because those things are truly tough to deal with. And when an artist connects to people in the audience who may be having a similar experience, it's powerful, right? We know that. We know it's extremely powerful. So I think that that's, the ability to kind of take a step back and say, look, I'm writing this song for you. This isn't just a song about me. It's a song about you. And removing those personal elements and making it as broad as possible, and actually sharing in a feeling with your audience. That to me is the core tenet of songwriting. That's something I'm very good at. That's something that I learned. I'm very lucky. My father is a songwriter. It was in my house. It was in front of my face. When I would sit down at my dad's Wurlitzer, I'd see lyrics scribbled on a notebook just sitting there. And he had awesome handwriting, and he still does. And I think it's just it became one of those things early on where I noticed that it was one of the few areas in life that my dad was able to put his signature on. And I wanted that. I wanted that very early. So I may be a little bit in a privileged position in that, I had a songwriter in my house, and I always kind of knew that I was going to be a songwriter. And it came very easily to me. It still comes very easily to me. There is no limit to the amount of ideas that I can come up with, depending on, what the project is, which artists I'm working with or co-writing with. I can be malleable. I have been malleable. Of course, the Andrew Canlon music that you've heard is mine, right? It's really as self-indulgent as I can be as a songwriter and as a producer. Writing material that strictly appeals to me and hopefully to some of you as well. But when I write, one of my tracks, whether it's an instrumental or there are lyrics involved, I'm doing that for me, man. It is pure joy. It is pure expression and it is the pure culmination of all of my years of learning music from an educational standpoint, enjoying the process of writing, kind of watching the artists who came before me, the ones who I admired, how they handle it, how, the approach that they take, and just kind of putting that into this giant cauldron in my brain and using that to, what I often say is, I think in verse when I speak, right? The rhythm, the timing, the timbre, the inflections. If there's music playing or if there's silence, there is a rhythm to what I do. There is a rhythm to who I am, and there is a rhythm to how I speak, clearly. And that's what I do. That's what I bring to music. That's what I bring to songs, is this directness, this punctuation, this expression, the ability to be eloquent enough, not to be self-indulgent to the point that I'm using words that people don't understand and I'm trying to outsmart people. I will never outsmart the audience, and I don't plan to outsmart the audience. the truth is I'm not that smart, but also I want people to like music that I write. I don't want them to be confused by the music that I write. And you'd be surprised how many artists are out there who don't even consider the audience when they're writing songs, because it's all about them. It's their outlet. It's their way to express what they want to convey to you. They want to do the most complex guitar riffs, the most insane chord changes, key changes, crazy time signatures, weird production, glitchy, noisy, lots of distortion. This isn't something that when I turn on my streaming platform on my phone, or yes, still when I listen to the radio in my car, that I want to spend my morning listening to. I am of the mind that everyone wants to relate to the music that they listen to. Every single person. And if you don't, and it's strictly background noise, and then you're a different type of personality. You're someone who needs noise. You're not a person who's really keyed into, what people are feeling, or you're a little bit afraid to be laid back. The calmness is what bothers you. And I think for me, when I write songs, it's scenic. Every song is a scene, a scenario out of a movie. Whether you're cruising down the highway or sipping a margarita on a skyscraper looking down at New York City, which is how I wrote Heart of Town. Literally standing there, looking out at the New York City skyline with a margarita in my hand and just thanking the gods that I'm here. And that song is all about, my love, obviously, of New York City. But it's also, it's the most unadulterated translation of joy in a moment that I could turn into a moment musically. And I've had people from all over the country tell me that they love that song. And New Yorkers, of course, love that song. And it's something that I'm immensely proud of. But that is really my approach to songwriting. I've taken a lot of, the energy of New York City, and I've turned it into music. And now that I'm here in Nashville, I think one of the coolest things that's happened is my desire to reconnect with my analog songwriting, with my calmer moments, with this more grassroots tradition of sitting down at the piano or sitting down with the guitar, strumming or just jamming along, and letting those words come to you in a moment, and it's a quiet moment, and supplementing that with what of my music, which is these Logic productions that throw a lot of sound in the mix. And when I perform live, it's a live electronic, at times dance show, but mostly pop show. And you're not yearning for additional sound. And that's something that really came out of necessity. I wanted nothing more than to play in a band growing up in high school and college and into my 20s. And even now, I want nothing more than a band around me when I'm on stage. I haven't had the best luck getting people to believe in my vision or my work enough for them to want to commit to that. And, if for most people, if they don't see greatness, they're not going to tag along. They're not going to waste their time. Right. And I think there was a moment early on where I did have a band. And I do think that, my bandmates definitely enjoyed playing with my material, but, whether or not they viewed it as something real, who knows, right? You'd have to ask them. But the proof is in the fact that I'm the only one still doing it. And I have friends, who are in the business, who have been very successful. And I have friends who, have hung it up entirely and have sort of gone on to live a very sort of pedestrian life, and that's fine. But I'm still doing it. And I think, it takes this long, and it takes being laughed at, and it takes being doubted, and it takes being called you're crazy to distill it all down into something that is going to separate you from all the other chuds that are out there, playing with other people's samples and taking shortcuts and exploiting their own sexuality and using these things that have nothing to do with music to prop themselves up, social media, TikTok, Instagram. And I just think that it's easy to do that. It's easy to take advantage of Ableton Live. It's easy to take advantage of TikTok and put those things together and be shot out of a cannon and get a million eyes on you right away. And I know from years and years and years of experience that it's great. It's going to work, and good on you for having that success. Is it sustainable? It could be for some. It may not be for everyone. And I can tell you from experience with YouTube as well, Instagram, when you're dealing with the social media aspect of being an artist, there is a deep amount of anxiety that comes with, having to churn these things out all the time, particularly if you're like me and you're just on your own. It's just you have bills to pay. You have other things to think about in terms of your responsibilities in life. And here you are, still grinding away, right? Trying to create this thing because you have a vision in your mind. And any other job, any other project in your life that you're going to do is going to feel forced. Whereas something that, you've been training since you were a child, and, your dad does, and you look up to your dad and you want to be like your dad, and you want to be like Billy Joel, and you want to be like Chris Martin from Coldplay, and you want to be like Love Drug, and you want to be like Dropping Daylight, and these were my inspirations. Anne Berlin. You want to be like a more current example, someone like Kygo, Ben Boomer, Monolink. There's Kid Francescoli. There are amazing artists out there, many of whom are older than me, right? It doesn't have to be quote unquote a young man's game or young person's game. Music, it doesn't have to be all about youth. And as a 37-year-old to be having this discussion feels kind of wrong as well. It's like as if a 37-year-old is old, right? But here we are living in this age of social media and blatant sex appeal. And I think it's kind of gross, what's going on, how people are willing to kind of exploit themselves. But, again, that's all personal stuff. That's my opinion. And, look, I have my own demons, which we will address head on in this show. And that's fine. If people have questions about me and, my history on a personal level, my character, let's go there. It's totally cool. As well as, musically, I view what I do musically as a professional endeavor, and I view, the life that I live that feeds my material, a part of that process. And if that makes you squeamish, then, you have every right to tune out. So that's going to be the vibe for this show. And I'm really, really excited to kind of get into the weeds. I'm kind of excited, to talk about things that maybe some artists might dodge at times because they're a little bit too personal or a little bit too real. That's totally cool. I'm ready, man. I've spent a lot of years dealing with my addictions, dealing with my vices, dealing with my demons, my misbehaviors, the way that I've been received by people, all of that stuff. I think it's really important in today's world to put your cards on the table and not hold back because you're afraid of the house of cards toppling down on you, and worried about what people are going to say. I sleep at night, and that the reason for that is the amount of work that I put into my recovery and into my therapy workbooks and support groups in order to be okay at this point, and understand, hey, what is it that's going on with me, that I can share with people that would enhance this creator listener relationship, and that would create a bond between us, so that You can follow my journey, and I can get to know you as a listener or a viewer, and we can lock in, and I can know what's on your mind, I can know what's on your heart, and we can have that back and forth, and we can grow together, as a community. That's fun. I think I love that stuff. And I think it should be all rooted firmly in what's real. So that's something I'm extremely excited about for this segment of the channel. I think this is going to be a real opportunity for me to spill my guts, and then for other artists to come in here, understand the vibe is ready and safe for them to do the same if they want to do that. That they always have a safe space in front of my microphone, so to speak, to be able to not have to dance around the harder topics that are on their hearts and minds, and that we can all, drop the charade and be real for a change. I've gotten pretty sick and tired of this veneer of perfection that I see from a lot of people. We're human beings. We all fall on our faces sometimes, and I think that's something that as an artist just provides fertile ground for you to continue to express yourself in a way that will hopefully make your project a success, because you want people to listen. I think the idea of like, oh, you went mainstream, you sold out. Shut up. Like, that's crazy. Like, we all need a job. We all need income. And frankly, the music industry has eliminated our ability. And the tech industry, the streaming industries, these companies and these conglomerates have really limited our earning potential to the extent that we're all scrambling, right, to earn a dollar. So, with that said, I think it's a real opportunity to kind of, like I said, get into the weeds and discuss some things that may be uncomfortable or maybe needed to be addressed. Maybe we can let the air out of the room. We can let the tension out of the room for a moment and actually say, hey, as it turns out, maybe you're not over here. Maybe you're not over here. Maybe we do have some common ground here. Maybe we don't have to be the sort of stereotypical Americans and be at each other's throats because we're on polar opposites of the ideology here. Let's discuss this, but let's talk about it in a way that's civil and philosophical. And that we're not jumping down each other's throats, man. I think that's fun. Again, I want to have fun conversations on this show. And with that said, some fun stuff that's coming up. I mentioned that when I first did a podcast many years ago, I didn't have much to talk about, and here we are in 2026. Not only am I hosting shows in New York and Nashville, I'm also partnering with other artists to help them realize their live sets more fully in the way that the Andrew Canlon project has become a full production live show. Doing that for other artists. The channel, of course, this is going to be an ongoing episodic show on my YouTube channel. So please subscribe, check it out, follow along. I'll be traveling from Nashville to New York, where I'll be working with Trends. It actually is the largest legal cannabis dispensary in New York City. And they have a gorgeous event space in the back of their venue that they've used for fashion shows and comedy nights and yoga events. And I'd worked with them as an employee. Actually, I was interviewing for a job as a bud tender, and I didn't get it, unfortunately, which tracks very well with my corporate life, if you know me. But there was a test, and I just didn't. I'm not a good test taker. But anyway, I got to know the owners, Rodney and Brandon, and later Malcolm, who is one of the event coordinators at the venue. All of these guys and the ladies who work there are incredible. They're self-made entrepreneurs. They're extremely invested in the neighborhood in Long Island City and Queens, and they expressed a very genuine desire to have musical acts in the space for future events, and we were asked, myself and my production partner Casey, who goes by the stage name Umzungu, he and I got together started booking lineups. We started booking ourselves, which, just to fill space. And he and I have both performed at Trends at a brand event where people come in and they get to meet some startup cannabis companies and get some samples and find out about some new products. It was a really cool experience. That was back in January. We were asked to come in and basically curate that for Trends, and that was an amazing experience. And a couple weeks later, Malcolm called us and said, "Hey, man, we'd love to work with you again. Let's run it back." So I will be heading to New York to do that, and I'm excited to have our headliner, Chocolate Brown, who is doing some incredible things in New York, and has developed this amazing kind of neo soul electronic vibe where there are effects being applied by his partner Sagami live to his vocal in real time, which is a real trip, man. It really kind of creates a cool environment for his vocal. But they play some live synth and they do some chops and loops, and it's really, really fun. He's going to be our headliner. We have Boston Flowers, which is a band out of Brooklyn. Sam, who is the lead singer and guitarist, he and I played a couple shows together at Berlin on the Lower East Side, I believe. Brooklyn Music Kitchen. We've done the circuit together and become really good friends. We played a Cultivare event together. Sam is letting me, come and perform on his rooftop on Saturday. I'll be doing a DJ set with a lot of new material, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about it. And then a good friend of mine, Joe Marr, who I met at Sound Collective, which is a production school down on Wall Street. They're doing amazing things over there. He's going to be performing under the stage name Misiato. And he's another guy who is really using a lot of the information that he's gained from his production school and translating that to his live performances. He can DJ, he can do hybrid electronic performances with samplers and synths and other instruments, and he's a good singer, rapper. He and I are working on a track right now called Lab Rat, which is kind of this really amazing mashup of all these different styles, and we just we are looping arpeggiators and playing with filters and doing all this I rap in it, and it's actually not bad. As it turns out, I'm a decent rapper. So you would just never know. But that's what's fun. And Jomar, aka Misiato, will be making his live debut at Trends. So if you go to my Instagram page, you can RSVP to that event and come see these guys. I'm going to be doing brief interviews with them, covering everything from their upcoming releases, show dates, their experiences, if they've had positive experiences with any of the brands, with any of the cannabis products in their creative process. Cannabis is something that has been very beneficial to me, not only for my anxiety being a sort of high functioning creative, but also, creatively unlocking a side of myself that gives me clarity to be able to express creative ideas, musical ideas at a high level, and translate that in the studio. It's been a game changer, man. I'm a vape guy. I think it's fantastic. Here in Nashville, there's still some difficulty here. I think THCA is legal, but it's still technically not 100%. It's confusing, but I hope that this country will just legalize it totally, because it's been such a helpful thing in my life, and I'm really, really excited that Trends is giving us this opportunity to be a part of this community, man, and to come in and perform and to host other artists and give them that platform that Mzungu and myself have enjoyed in the past. So it's going to be great, man. I'm excited. So I'll be in New York this weekend, back home and in the grind, and I'm sure by the time I'm finished working on all of these things, it's going to be 4 days of just straight up music projects that I'll be ready to head back to Nashville and enjoy a little bit of peace and quiet, which has been a very healing time in my life right now to have this sanctuary of creativity, to be amongst so many musicians who are treated well. And many of whom do treat each other well. It's in quote unquote industry town, and you always hear a lot of negative things talked about, people not being authentic or just being all about themselves. And you're always going to encounter that. But my experience so far with musicians and with the production community here in Nashville has been overwhelmingly positive. So I'm really, really stoked to continue to share this experience. I have a couple of productions that are out to my fellow collaborator Dimitri Libman, who did Gemini Man with me, To Live a Dream, so many other songs we've worked on together. But I have a song called Stargazer, which features some guest vocals from one of my oldest friends, Lindsay Benjamin. She's going to be singing on this one, and probably some future records as well. So this will be a nice mashup, and I kind of teased a little bit of that on my Instagram. So there will be some new material coming out. I've got some really fun studio sessions lined up that will kind of be very experimental. I'm going to do a little breakfast performance. I may be adding DJ streams to the rotation. The podcast will be kicking off, and I'll be interviewing a lot of really talented people on the channel and giving them an opportunity to speak on their experience and their life's journey, and possibly even perform if that's something that they want to do. I'm incredibly fortunate to have what I always say, that I've touched the cape, the hem of the cape of some really great artists in New York and in Nashville and LA as well, San Francisco. And I Amsterdam. I've been fortunate to have some, I've been asked by DJs and labels to write for them and to be a part of their publishing on certain projects, and there's some very successful artists who have asked me to co-sign some publishing deals as of late. These are people that have billions of streams to their name. So yeah, the answer is yes. If you want to use my material and inject it into your project, and you're willing to go through that legal process and keep things equitable, then yes, you will. It's likely that will happen. So I look forward to that. The couple of releases I've put out last year, I was very active in 2025. I think I released 4 to 5 new songs and a ton of new content on YouTube. The year before that, I was in Amsterdam marketing my project at ADE. Meeting global artists from all over the world and creating introductions in places like India, or the UK or France, getting written about by DJ Magazine, as an up and coming DJ by the French DJ Magazine outlet was awesome. Like there are things that have happened that are really, really cool. And theoretically, all of these things would happen 20 years ago. There's money to be made from a lot of that stuff. And I think now, because of what's gone on with streaming and our inability to really earn from streaming, I'm still very much scraping the bottom of the barrel, which is inexcusable. And anyone can look at my career and be critical of a lack of growth and a lack of financial success. As you can hear when I speak, I'm an intelligent person. I understand economics. I understand business. As I said, I've been in the background listening. I've worked at major marketing firms. I've worked for startups. I took production at Juilliard. Thank you very much. And I think to be in my position, to be as intelligent as I am, and to still be scrambling is indicative of the time that we're living in. It's not for a lack of effort. It's not for a lack of trying that I'm not making a 6-figure salary, and that I'm not taken seriously as a creative or a professional, frankly. Has nothing to do with my effort, but I would say that that's the state of the union right now, and that's the pain that a lot of Americans are experiencing in 2026. I'm not alone. So I think if you enjoy what I do and you want more, invest in any way possible. Stream, share, listen, subscribe, watch. The biggest thing you can do to help is share, in fact, to other human beings, right? So that I don't get accused of using bots as subscribers and followers, because that's not what I do. So yeah, the biggest thing you could do is just, spread the word, spread the love, engage with the channel. Feel free to comment, and I love participating in that sort of banter online. So guys, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for being here. I have so much to do. I've got to work on my DJ set, and I got to start packing for my flight tomorrow. But New York City, I am so happy to see you. It will be an amazing feeling to be home when the river is not frozen and the sun is shining. So I, even if there's rain, even if the weather, puts a damper on the rooftop party, we'll figure out a way to make the most of the time and just enjoy each other's company. I'm so excited. I'm thrilled to be alive and working on music, and to be sitting in front of you today, healthy and able to do what I love to do at the end of the day. Thank you so much. Once again, please like, subscribe, and share. And thank you for being here. I would not be here if it weren't for you. And every single time I do this, it will get better. That is my pledge to you, as always, with my audience. I'll never let you down. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. Go out there, live your life, be healthy, be happy, be you.